Hello, class. The focus this week is on analyzing the different characteristics of adult learners. And what the intent this week is to understand what drives adult learners, or what we need to consider when designing different instructional strategies. So we're going to look at those different characteristics. We're going to ideally start to develop our own theory of adult learning. We were introduced to andragogy last week, and that'll be a central theme as well. But we're going to build off of that and begin to think about how you view adult learning. The great thing about adult learning, and as you'll see, one of the characteristics is this idea that of previous experience. And we all have our previous experiences, and that shapes and guides who we are. And we're also going to begin to look at developing some instructional strategies based on these characteristics. And we will go back to these characteristics throughout the semester, and as you will see from some of the supplemental material included, the andragogy model is the prime example of what adult learners are all about, but there are some other concepts as well. So at the heart of this andragogy model are these 6 core adult learning principles. And last week we just looked over this model. This week we're going to look at these core 6 right here. So to start, it comes down to the learners need to know, the idea of the why, what, and how. And when developing curriculum, we need to think about our adult learners want to know, why are they learning this? It can't just simply be this is what we're learning today. They want to know why, they want to know what, and how are we actually going to do that. If we scroll down here, I go into a little more depth on each of these, talking about the idea that they need to know why they are actually learning a concept, what they are learning, and how they are going to be learning it. Those are important for adult learners, otherwise they're not going to get by. And when you think about it in a classroom, or when you think about on the job, there's a reason why you're learning it, and there's a reason why, how, and what you will be doing with that. And that's what I think is so interesting with higher education. And a lot of people are going back to get degrees, but the question always is, are they actually learning anything that will be beneficial to them? The second one is that adult learners are autonomous and self-directing. Adult learners believe they have control over their learning, and they want to take responsibility for their own learning. And you all know how best you learn, and you know how to go about learning. So to sit in here and design a course specifically for students, and not taking into account that each of you want to learn on your own and want to have a hand in what you are actually learning, is a mistake, and something that I think you do see in higher ed, and even in the workplace. But it's something we need to think about, that adult learners are autonomous, they're self-directing. The instructor should be more of a guide, someone to assist in the process, and we'll spend more time talking about this when we get to assessments and looking at designing assessments. The idea also is that adult learners want to have a hand, or would like to have a hand in the actual design of the content. And that can be a little more challenging in higher education, but at the workplace, it's definitely beneficial to get input to understand what needs to be covered, why it needs to be covered. Number 3, we touched on a little bit earlier, the idea of bringing the prior experience. Prior experience is huge, and understanding that we have these rich experiences, and that this adds to what we're doing. And I always think it's interesting for me as I teach this class, talking about strategies that ideally I should be using in this class and all the courses here at Athens State. And sometimes I'd probably do a better job than others at accomplishing that, but I'm not going to sit in here and tell someone who teaches welding how to do their job as a welder, what they need to do. I'm more so as that guide to help them along in the process, because you guys have these past experiences, and you have this knowledge that ideally should add to the course. And that is a goal in this course, and ideally in other courses, other discussion questions, or the group assignments, is that you guys can work together and share your experiences, which add to the class. And also the idea with bringing your prior experience, you have your prior experience, how you learn, the best practice for you, what your learning styles are. So a good course, a good training and development program allows adult learners the opportunity to use their strengths and experiences and actually enhance the curriculum. Next is a readiness to learn, and the idea that for adults, the goal of learning is to improve their current situation or their real life situation, to learn new tasks that may allow them to transition from one stage in life to another. If you think back to my daughter's in pre-K right now, well, she really doesn't have a choice whether or not she goes to school. She has to go to school. But for you all, you made a choice to do this master's program or do this undergraduate program. There are other options you could do, or you could do absolutely nothing at all. So there's a readiness to learn. Ideally, this will get you somewhere else. And that's the goal, that all learning will take you somewhere else. Then an orientated to life-centered learning, and the idea of either being task or problem-centered. And if you think about training and development, we're looking at improving a performance on a specific task, whatever that may be. I still remember going a few years ago, buying a car at a car dealership, and the salesman next to mine was doing a training and development course on his computer as he was waiting for customers. And he's not doing that because he's bored. He's doing that to gain knowledge and to become more confident in selling those whatever that product may be. The other is the problem-centered, in which you are doing that to solve a specific problem you may have in life. And number 6 is the motivation to learn, and the idea that adults are intrinsically motivated and not extrinsically motivated. And that's a huge factor for those of you that are in the classroom, realize that oftentimes students, in K-12 maybe aren't as interested in learning, where adult learners are motivated to learn because they see the value in this and they're trying to get from one point in life to another. And this desire to continue learning and growing. Again, some of that comes with maturity. Some of it just comes with life. I know for me, going through higher education, my first few years, I was there and I went through the motions. But as I got older and took a break and came back, I was a lot more mature, and it was amazing how much easier school was when you're motivated to learn and you want to improve your life. So really these, going back up here to the top, are the 6 key principles that are shared by adult learners. And there are a few others out there. For example, I've included here some other considerations that maybe younger students don't have to worry about. The idea that I teach a mindful leadership course, and some of you are in that course, and it's amazing how busy people are. And you can't just say, oh, I'm taking my 12 hours at classes, and other than that, I'm just going to kind of hang out and do whatever. You have work, you have family, you have community, you have all these other things going on in your life that you have to juggle on top of education. So that goes back to the idea where you have to be motivated, because it's going to be challenging. It's going to be hard, and it's going to eat up a lot of your time. Just recently, I completed my MBA, and there were a lot of nights sitting in front of my computer for 2 or 3 hours while my family and my 2 kids sacrificed in order so that I could accomplish that task. So there's a lot going on that we have going on that we have to juggle, as well as learning. Again, as this Graham and Donaldson point out, talk about the idea of experience, which is a huge plus and should be incorporated into every class and can add so much to the experience. And then also the idea of talking about in higher education, the practical skills, developing their careers, making your life better. As I said earlier, you guys are in here to improve the quality of your life. And that is kind of the point and the purpose of this program. I've included a couple really good articles as well on adult learning theory, adult learning principles, and I'll touch on each of those. And then also a video on andragogy. It's more of an overview of andragogy, but it touches on a lot of the principles that we've talked about so far and gives us, again, it builds on that foundation of knowledge related to adult learners. The first article here looks at 7 facts about the adult learning theory, and it points out some different things about adult learners, about what they have to offer, characteristics about them. Again, touching on a lot of the key points that were covered in the andragogy model. Scrolling down a couple of these I want to point out, again, there's the internal motivation. This is something that is different from the andragogy model and something that we're going to talk about in our discussion, the idea that mistakes are often the most valuable teacher. And the idea behind this is being allowed to make mistakes allows us to grow and learn from those mistakes and become more successful. And with the idea of the hands-on learning and actually doing something, which we'll get into more with assessments, and the idea that multiple choice or memorization isn't probably the best way to go, and it's better to have these hands-on assignments or hands-on opportunities. And then the other different ideas they possess are very similar to what we saw with the andragogy model and the idea of being active, being motivated, those type of things. The second article looks at some important adult learning principles, talking about adults as being practical, goal-orientated, self-paced, again, the life experience, and learn by doing. So again, you start to see common themes as we go through here. The more we read on adult learning, the same themes continue to emerge about adult learners. And that's what I really want you to get out of this module, is the idea that there are certain characteristics of adult learners, and we need to consider those when we go about designing curriculum.